You ever wonder why God allows suffering? There, you look around at the people that you love, or the people that you work with, or your neighbors, your colleagues. Everybody is either suffering or knows someone who is suffering greatly. And I think it's real easy to decide several things when you're suffering, like, oh, I deserve this, or just get what comes to me, God's getting me back. But I think suffering is way more than that. Number one, I don't think God intended suffering. That wasn't part of the grand plan. I think humans introduced suffering through sin. And the cool part about that is that God does promise an end to the suffering. There is an ultimate end to all suffering. But in the middle, God's not just allowing us to suffer. He's in the suffering with us. He doesn't, if you'll allow him to, you don't just go through the suffering. You go through the suffering. You go through the suffering, which includes a refinement process and a learning process and a compassionate growth in your ability to be compassionate for others. And so many good things can come from a yucky set of circumstances. I guess I can think of several yucky circumstances that I've been through in my life, but if I were going to speak of the pinnacle of the yucky for me, just happened to also be the best thing that ever happened to me, which is, wow, the dichotomy of that is so interesting to me. But I had a little girl, and I guess the reason I'm thinking about this is her birthday is coming up, and her name is Sawyer Faith Colwell, and she was just darling. And anyway, what a process that was for me to even have Sawyer. I wasn't in a conventional marriage, so having a baby the conventional way wasn't an option for me at that time, and so I opted for IUI and used a donor. And had a couple of miscarriages during the process, and then finally, on April 21st, 2014, I gave birth to Sawyer Faith Colwell. She weighed 1 pound and 1 ounce and was 10.5 inches long. That was the most incredible thing I think I've ever done. Number one, I was amazed by the fact that we have that down to such a science. Literally, I know that sounds silly, but I mean, the timing of it, the way that they can control all of the fertilization process. But you know what? It doesn't make any difference how well they do that without God intervening. You don't end up with a baby. And so every step of the process was really, really cool for me. I loved getting pregnant. I loved being pregnant. I loved having Sawyer. I loved being her mother for 11 days. I loved all of it. I was so excited. I was almost impossible to be around. I was just excited, didn't even start to cover it. I was so very, very excited. Anyway, and so we all celebrated and, looked forward to, planned, getting ready. And I don't remember the timelines at all, but I'm sure anybody that's had to go through this process kind of knows what it's like. They pump you full of hormones and you're just a mess, an absolute mess. You can cry at a Hallmark commercial. I mean, it's just, you're crying and you're explaining to your family you don't even know why you're crying, so don't worry about it. I don't know why I'm crying either. I was just not a crier, so that was really crazy for me. It was actually a huge blessing, by the way. Arguably the best things I ever learned to do was cry, because it really got me away from my anger and moved me into something that was a little more palatable to others and less destructive in my relationships. But anyway, wow. So they pump you full of drugs and they make all of that happen, and it's fantastic. And then, you have the little book, what to expect when you're expecting, and you get to go through that whole process, and it just lo and behold, the whole thing happens just like it says it's going to, and it's just incredible. And anyway, everything was just going along fantastic, and next thing you know, they say the baby's a little bit small. Okay, that's no big deal. And so we're just watching, and I'm advanced maternal age because I was 38 or 39 years old when I got pregnant with her, and they treat you like you need to be put out to pasture, like you're geriatric and need to be in a locked room. I don't understand. But anyway, and they make sure to say it to you at every stop, kind of like checking the baby's bracelet. They say to you your name and your date of birth and that you're advanced maternal age. I don't know why it's necessary to say that out loud over and over and over, but they make sure to do it. So, anyway, I'm glad they can put so much emphasis on such a yucky part of that. I don't know why that's necessary, but anyway, for some reason it is. And they say it over and over and over again, like you're 1,000 years old. Anyway, one day I go to the doctor and they say, well, things have changed. And it was something about being growth restricted and something that happens so it's in theory, or not in theory, the way it's supposed to work is that when there's free flow of blood through the umbilical cord, regardless of how my heart's beating or how her heart's beating, there's free flow of blood through that umbilical cord. Well, at some point of that growth restriction process, it started when my heart would beat. It would somehow, ours didn't sync up, but they told me that it was going to progress, and that once it made it to the point that if my heart beat, it took blood away from her, that obviously that would be a grim into that scenario. So because we had made it so close to that, it had progressed almost to that point, they decided that that was an emergency. I was going to the doctor every day at that point, and so we go to the hospital, to Medical City in Dallas. Those people are absolutely incredible. We get there, I'm only 25 weeks and 1 day, which is not nearly enough, and they had been giving me surfactant for the last couple of weeks, and so I was as prepared as I could be, but she just wasn't done enough, so that was a problem. But we did find a neonatologist that would be committed to resuscitating her. And so anyway, we went in, and the team that was there just were very clear about how grim the prognosis was, but everybody was very hopeful. Nobody was doom and gloom. They were very, clear about the likelihood of this going well was not high, but everybody was optimistic that we were going to all do the best we could to have the best outcome possible. So it wasn't, it was somber, but it wasn't yucky and heavy and yuck, And of course, my sister was there. I don't even know who all was there with us. My friend Cecile was there. Yeah. So anyway, and Shannon, of course, and my mother-in-law. So we go in, have a baby, lo and behold, she's alive. And so, I never really thought she wasn't going to be alive, but I really didn't know what to expect. I was just trying to trust the process. Whatever was going to happen, I was just going to do the best I could. So, anyway, obviously, I'm behind the curtain, so I can't see, and they don't anticipate that she's going to be able to cry because she's too little, and so that wasn't even an expectation. They had kind of warned me about that. And anyway, you hear nothing other than, they're pulling and tugging on me, and you can tell, they're having just very few words to say to each other. Clearly, they're working on resuscitation. You can feel them hand the baby off to the neonatology team. And I don't know, it felt like an eternity, but I'm sure it was just minutes, maybe even seconds. The entire room just erupted in cheer. She turned pink and everything was good. Her heart was beating. All was well. Yay. So, everybody left to go with Sawyer because, yay, we were all so excited. So, I don't know. I guess everybody forgot about me because we were so excited that the baby was here. So, those fools all left me by myself in the recovery room with this nurse. Well, I don't know how many of you guys have had a C-section, but it is the weirdest thing in the whole world for your body to be numb from the waist down, because you tell your legs to move and they don't move. And, for a moment I thought to myself, this is what people that have had traumatic injuries and are paralyzed or don't have use of their lower extremities, this is what they experience. And it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying to me because I had never experienced that, and I don't know what I thought was going to happen. I guess I thought somebody was going to be standing there with me to explain it to me, but that's not what happened. And I guess everybody thinks, well, you're a nurse, Well, I don't know everything. I only know the parts I know. So anyway, it wasn't ideal, and it was kind of freaking me out. But anyway, we made it through all of that, and then, yay, they took me, because obviously I couldn't move, they took me in the bed to go see Sawyer, and that was one of the highlights of my life. She held onto my hand. She was, she was not just laying there, she was alive and moving around and pink and, yeah, yay. Not just a listless baby. So that was super exciting, and the next morning, as soon as I could move, I put my little jeans on and went down to the nursery, and there I sat for the next 11 days, except to go to sleep at night. I sat right there, and it was a blessing to have the opportunity to do that. They let me stay in the hospital the entire time. It was fantastic, and the nurses were amazing, and there were so many wins. Oh my gosh, every time we thought there's no way she's going to make it through this, she would, and she'd get better, and she would thrive over here, and then this would happen. Yay, everything was yay. And then one day we walked in, and it was not yay anymore. It was clear to me that something drastic had changed. And anyway, and kind of once you'd had to have that conversation with the doctor about where we really are and what this means, and just to kind of understand what that looks like and what the reality is. And certainly we did everything we could, and we were as heroic as we could possibly be. And but then on the final day, I went into her room that morning, and it was clear that it was even more obvious to me that, like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like, if you continue down this path of trying to continue to keep her alive, then you are just doing it for yourself, and you're not doing it for her, because she doesn't have anything to gain. She's not going to be okay, even if somehow she pulled through this, barring a miracle, of course. And I didn't even pray for a miracle. I didn't pray for a miracle. I prayed for whatever was best, because I didn't know what was best. I was ill-equipped to even be a mother, in my opinion, much less be a mother of a special needs child. I didn't know, and I didn't know, period. I didn't know. And so I just knew that God knew better than me, and I trusted Him only because I'd been taught to trust Him. And He had never failed me yet, so I just decided I was going to trust Him this time. I thought, well, if you ever had a time when you needed to trust Him, this is it right here. So I just did, and thankful to my mother and my grandmother for that, because they're the ones that helped me to have that level of faith and that level of trust in God, because I don't know how you get that without a good example. So I'm really grateful for that. But anyway, I just switched my prayer over that day from help her get better to help me endure what you're about to do. And I don't know if that was a good prayer or a terrible prayer or a given up prayer. I don't know. I mean, so I'm sure that everybody will have a lot to say about it, and that's fine with me. I did what I did in the moment, and that's the best I knew how to do. And would I do it differently next time? I don't think so. I don't think I would. If I had it to do over again today, would I do it differently? No, I don't think I would. So it was what was right for me and my family, and I'm not saying that something different is not right for a different family. So whatever I choose in my life has nothing to do with how I feel about what others should choose for theirs. I think everybody should choose for themselves. For real, I believe that. So anyway, it was pretty horrifically beautiful what happened next. We all prayed together, and Shannon, the doctor took her off the ventilator. I let Shannon go first. When she was finished holding her, she gave her to me, and I had asked God to please let me. I have the worst memory in the whole world, we'll just say that. And so I thought, what am I going to do? This is all I get, and how am I going to remember? So I'd asked my mother-in-law and my sister to take pictures and videos, but please don't console us or intervene or be part of it or do any of that. Just let me do it, but take the pictures and the videos. And I asked God to just give me the ability to go in there and act, keep it together, Just don't lose it right now. Obviously that was going to need to happen, but if it could not happen at the one moment I get to be alive with her be alive in my hands, I wanted that to be the truth. Because I knew at the very most I was going to have was 2 minutes. And at minimum I was going to have, at the most I was going to get is a couple of minutes, but, the reality was I was probably going to get a few seconds. She had not had to breathe on her own, and so she wasn't going to be able to do that for very long. And so I asked him to help me be able to be calm and to remember. And thankfully I was able to do both of those things. I remember every bit of it. I remember how it smelled, how it looked, how it felt, how she smelled, how she looked, how she felt. How she looked at me. Till she took her last breath right in my eyes. And I'm so grateful, regardless of how painful that was, that I got to do it. And that I remember it. And thank God I wasn't out using drugs or getting high or drinking or doing any of the things that I'd done in the past to try to tamp down my feelings. So I remember how it felt. It was agonizing. But it was so perfect all at the same time. Like I wouldn't trade that pain for anything. Like I'm so grateful for the pain, because without those moments, had she just died in that box and I didn't get to hold her or look her in the eyes, because I couldn't get right in front of her because of that stupid incubator. And she was on a oscillator, so you couldn't move her or hold her. She couldn't tolerate that, So this was my one and only opportunity. So that was God having grace and mercy and making provisions for me and giving me something valuable in exchange for the pain that I endured. And that wasn't the end of the pain, by the way. It was just the beginning of the pain. The pain, wow, crazy. Who knew you could hurt like that? I didn't even know that was a choice. Now, and I was not suicidal, but I did not care if I lived or not. Like, I would have never done something to hurt myself, but it would have been just as easy to die as it would have been to live. Like, I just had no will to move forward. And I made it through the whole process just fine. God, the outpouring of love from my friends and family was just incredible. The ones that showed up and were so good to me and hung in there the whole time, you'd be absolutely amazed by who that was. And the ones that you thought would be sitting there for sure, no doubt about it, you've given them credit already, were nowhere to be found. And so, yeah, that was a pretty interesting experience on a whole lot of levels. And then, once everybody left and went home after the funeral, that's when it really hits you. You come home without a baby, and all of that stuff is still there. You've got to do something with that. And In theory, you've got to go back to work. Thank God I was at a place that I had, I think, 8 weeks of paid maternity leave, which was incredible. Anyway, so thank God for that. So I laid in bed for about 4 or 5 weeks. I don't remember how many. And I'm pretty sure I did not take a bath in that amount of time. And I'm pretty sure that my hair was almost completely in knots by the time I got up and did something about it. But I just didn't feel like I could. I didn't feel like I had anything in me that would allow. It felt like the worst case of the flu you'd ever had in your life. Like you just felt like you couldn't. It wasn't just that you didn't want to, because I had that too, but I didn't want to, and I felt like I couldn't. And then I remember Shannon, I guess she was getting more and more worried about me, so she finally came in there and got me one day and physically made me get up out of the bed. She said, we're going outside. And so we had all of these little metal animals around our swimming pool, and we had named them silly little things because the kids would come over, and so we would call the little animals by their names. So Shannon and I resisted heavily. I wasn't interested in going outside. I wasn't interested in getting dressed. I wasn't interested in any of it. So after being grumpy McStuffins and her finally making me go out the door, we make it to the first one, and it was Dominic the donkey. And so she said, say good morning, Dominic. And I was like, I'm really not about to do this. You know, I was in such a bad place, and so, I mean, just lower than I had ever been in my life. And I had been to some really low places, and my addiction had taken me to some places I didn't even know existed. And this was like 6 miles beneath that. Anyway, she just kept on and on and on, just relentlessly. And finally, to get her to shut up, I said, good morning, Dominic. She said, great. And so we go to the next one. And it was Rudy the rooster. She said, say good morning, Rudy. And I thought, I was like, I just really can't do this. And she's like, yeah, you can't, just do it one more time. Just one more time, do it. And so I obliged, and we went on, and we had Florence the flamingo, and Alan the alligator. I mean, just on and on. There was tons of them. Anyway, by the time I made it all the way around the swimming pool and made it to the very last one, we started laughing about it. And it hit me right then. I thought, oh my gosh. Because there was no way I thought laugh again. That's impossible. Who could ever laugh again? Like you could never have anything good again in your life once something like that happens. Much less laugh again. And I thought, oh my gosh. If I can laugh, maybe I can survive this. Maybe I can. And so, in typical Marianne fashion, I thought, heck yeah, I'm gonna live through this. I just had a C-section, mind you, and I'd been laying in the bed for like 4 or 5 weeks. So I was weak as a kitten. I don't know what I was thinking. They had given me some kind of an outrageous bid to resurface our swimming pool and the deck around it. And so I was like, that's ridiculous. I can do that myself. Of course you can. So this was really before YouTube, wasn't it? Or maybe YouTube was just kind of getting started, but it wasn't like it is now, where you could just go literally learn how to do anything 100 different ways. And so I got out there and resurfaced the swimming pool. Yeah. And that was good for me. And then a week or so later, I went back to work, and all of those sweet people, and you learn in nursing school that you are not supposed to share your business with patients, okay? You're there to help, you're not there to be a part of their life and them to understand yours and all of that. That's not what the nursing process is all about. You're supposed to keep it professional. You're supposed to do all those things. Well, let me tell you something. If you're going to go to people's houses and spend 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, multiple days in a row, every single month, and you think they're not going to learn stuff about you, you're wrong. And they're not going to watch you go from nothing to pregnant, and then you're not pregnant anymore, and then go from nothing to pregnant, and then you're not pregnant anymore, and then you go from nothing to pregnant, now you're big and pregnant, now you're off work for 6 or 8 weeks. It's not like you can hide all that from people. So do you want to go share your business and make it their business? No, but how do you not, right? If you're going to be human at all and participate when you're there with the patient for that length of time, they're going to learn those things about you. And so when I went back, and I saw those patients for years and years, some of those patients I started taking care of when they were like 8, 9, 10 years old. And one of them, I even officiated their wedding when they were up in their 20s. So it's not like you don't build relationships with some of these people. I get it when you're in a Fast and Furious or in the hospital, or you're in these short-term environments. But when you're in a long-term environment, you can't help but develop relationships with people if you're going to be human at all. So anyway, the best therapy I ever got was going back to work, and all of those people loving on me and wanting to hear what happened and wanting to know and wanting to see the videos and wanting to hear about the experience, and me having to cry and be ridiculous and try to make it through those explanations. I got stronger and stronger and stronger and was able to speak about it better, and my heart healed, and through the grace of God, He took that pain away from me. Does that mean that I don't miss her, that I'm not sad, that I'm not all of those things, that I don't wish things would have been different? No, Lord, no, it doesn't mean that. What it means is that He has taken that unbearable pain away and put a salve on it that only He can do. And He has taken away any bitterness or resentment or anger that I have towards any of the process, Him or otherwise. When I see people with new babies, I'm so excited for them. When I see people that would be Sawyer's age, I'm not mad about that. I'm excited for people to get to have what they want to. I'm so grateful for what I had. I would take it again. I would take it and the pain and everything that went with it to have what I got. So I'm not complaining. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for what I had, and not bitter and angry about what I didn't get. And for anybody else out there that is in that position, please let God help you. I don't think there's another way. I don't know how you let that pain get better if you don't let Him help you. I don't think it's possible. Please ask Him to help you. He will. He will. He's good like that. And go out there and push for excellence, the very best you're able. Even if you're in the middle of a crisis, ask God to help you. Have a great day.